Hello and welcome to Flix and Chill with me, Luke. This week or this day, I have a very special guest with me. It's Nathan. So, Nathan, why don't you take it away and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Nathan. My online presence everywhere and my kind of podcasting, I'm also go by the name Bubbawheat, which, if you see me anywhere online, that's probably how you know me.
Hmm.
But I don't really hide my real name,
Okay.
but it's one of those things where I've gone by Bubbawheat online for, oh God, like almost 30 years now. So.
Wow.
And it's still one of those usernames that's pretty unique. Like if you search Bubba Wheat, all one word,
Hmm.
95% of the hits is going to be stuff that I've put online. So
Yeah.
it's hard to get away. It's kind of like I've branded myself without even realizing it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And for when after I started getting into podcasting a bit more, there was like a period of time where I tried to go away from it a little bit and started like anytime I guested on other people's shows, I'd use my real name a bit more often. But then I kind of just embraced it, and I'm Bubba Wheat, so
Yeah.
I
So
mean
do
it.
you do you prefer that or Nathan? Like, what do you prefer?
I mean, whenever especially whenever I'm on somebody else's show,
Hmm.
I'm okay with either, really.
Okay.
As long as, as long as my social media is in the show notes, I'm perfectly fine.
Okay, cool. Can I ask why Baba Wheat? Like, is there any? I'm guessing there is some sort of meaning or reason behind it.
It's kind of funny, and I have told this story,
Hmm.
several times, but it's one of those stories that I'm always happy to tell again. It's again going back like 30 years in the AOL 3.1 days.
Hmm.
I got my parents got AOL before I had been on just like local BBSs. If you remember those, like we had my our first computer had a 2400 modem. So that's
Nuts.
whenever we upgraded from a 2400 to a 14.4, it's like, wow, this is so fast. It loads a page of text at a time instead of a single line of text at a time.
Yep.
And then we got AOL 3.1, and I got my own username and email address.
Hmm.
And it was a big thing for me that I wanted to have a username that did not have a number in it.
Yes.
And so at the time, like I went through like 30 different iterations. It's like, I was big into fantasy. So like Drizzt, no,
Hmm.
Wolfgar, no,
Hmm.
other things like that. And the other thing that I kind of enjoyed at the time was, Comedy Central was big,
Hmm.
and they had a lot of stand-up comedy. And so I love stand-up comedy, and I enjoyed Jeff Foxworthy. His big thing is you might be a redneck if
Ah,
that was
okay,
kind of
okay.
his thing. So he had like this redneck humor and talking about like long hillbilly type names. And so my friends and I came up with our own redneck names, and the one that I went with was Billy Bob Joe Buckwheat.
Ah, okay.
And so that's obviously too long for a username, so I shortened it, eventually to Bubba Wheat. That's
Hmm.
uh, and that came up, no numbers, that was accepted. It's like, all right, that's my AOL username, and 30 or so years later, it's still there.
I can so relate because I'm guessing I'm slightly younger than you as I didn't start to use internet until mid 2000s. So, and I remember specifically that struggle. I want to have like a username with no numbers. And so
Hmm.
if you started 30 years ago, like in mid 90s, imagine how mid 2000s, like, everything you can think of is like taken. So you can have like this cool username, but like one or like one, two, or like random numbers, like, 356.
Yeah,
So
or
like,
like a lot of people use like the last two numbers of their birth year.
yeah, yeah,
You see
yeah.
that a lot too.
Or of course they use like, 69 or 420 because those are the funny numbers and everybody on the internet knows what those numbers mean. So,
Or you also have the, the capital X, small x
oh yeah,
username,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
small
Yeah.
x, capital X.
Yes. Destroyer XXXX 69. It's just like, one of the, yeah. No, I can definitely relate to that struggle, just like having a username with no numbers. Because yeah, for some reason the numbers are not aesthetically pleasing. It's you don't want to be like Baba one Wheat two or something like that.
Yeah, and ever since social media and stuff has popped up, the
Hmm.
other thing is there's only been like a one or two instances where I've not been able to get the username Bubbawheat right off the bat.
Okay.
And that's and I think for a while I if the name was mostly unique, but at one point I did find that there was a some an older guy, and his first name was Bubba and his last name was Wheat. So his name was literally Bubba Wheat. And I'm fairly certain that in the couple cases where I didn't get that name,
Hmm.
like I wasn't able to get the Gmail, and I think I was on Skype and I couldn't get that for Skype is kind of the two big ones that I know that I missed out on the Bubba Wheat
Hmm.
username.
Hmm. And it might have been that guy actually. So, let's not dox that guy. Maybe.
Well, he
But.
he's it's funny, like kind of following it, like I
Hmm.
would search every once in a while, I do the vanity search where you
Hmm.
search your name to see if anything new pops up, and I
Hmm.
did see that he passed away a few years ago.
Oh, rest in peace, that guy then. Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace, Bubba Wheat.
Yes, the OG. Well, okay, so that's fascinating. So, what makes you you? So, for example, obviously you like movies, hence why you're here. Like, and we will talk movies later on. But if I were to ask you, what makes you you besides your love of movies? Do you have any hobbies? Do you have any interests beside movies? What makes Nathan or Baba Wheat Baba Wheat?
I mean, I enjoy like kind of a lot of nerdy stuff.
Okay.
These days I watch a lot more TV than I watch movies because kind of time is at a premium. I've kind of got a full house. I have a wife. I've got an 18-year-old. I have a 3-year-old. And I've got a mother-in-law living with us as well. So
Busy man.
and-
Mm,
yeah, so a lot of times it's a lot harder to give my attention to a 2-hour movie
mm-hmm,
at one time, and and it's even harder to go out to the movies these days because it's like, well, do I want to try and sneak out by myself to to get some alone time? Do I want to try and just go me and my wife have a date night, or
mm-hmm.
if we take the whole family, it's like, spending $100 to go see the movie. It's expensive these days.
No, it is.
Um,
So I would imagine your favorite TV show must be Full House.
I did actually enjoy that, and I
Okay.
did enjoy the sequel series Fuller House.
Hmm.
My TV preferences is kind of a mix between like the really good nerdy shows and absolute trash.
Oh.
Because the absolute trash is kind of the TV shows that you can put on, and if there's chaos going in the house, you don't have to pause it. You can just deal with the chaos, come back to it, and you didn't really miss anything important. But it's a lot harder. Like there's so many like prestige shows that I want to watch. I
Yep.
did start I got a year the Black Friday. I got a year of Peacock for $20. And so
Hmm.
and then I went on to Peacock, and there's practically nothing on here that I want to see. But I did start watching Poker Face. I got one episode in, and that's, excellent. But that's like one of those shows where it's like, okay, I want to actually put this on whenever I can devote my full attention to it.
Yeah.
And that almost never happens. So it's like, I watch one episode, every 2 weeks or so is kind
Hmm.
of my pace on that. But then I'll blow through like Friends for the third time, or
Hmm.
like my 600 pound life, or
See, okay,
uh,
that was my question because when you said trashy, you're between like the classy TV shows and the trashy ones. Are we talking about like actual TV shows or for the trashy ones, or are we talking about the reality TV shows?
it's a mix. I don't watch a
Mix.
ton of reality.
Okay.
Like I've been kind of going through my 600 pound life. I like a lot of reality competition shows,
Hmm.
like the Great British Baking Show.
Oh yeah.
A lot of like cooking shows. There is like a Harry Potter one that's on Max, where that's really neat because that's like uh high skill bakers that do these like fantastic works of basically like works of art with sugar and flour and
Hmm.
all that stuff where they're making these incredible um chocolate and cake creations
Yeah. Yeah.
and stuff like that is just fun to watch and a lot of those like creative shows like Blown Away on Netflix is another one that's a glass blowing art competition
Mm.
uh that stuff like that is really neat and also occasional like game shows like I blew through Human versus Hamster is another like just ridiculous trash one and like Floor is Lava on Netflix just these weird reality competition shows.
Okay, this might be a
And
dumb
the
question.
Floor is another one that's
Yeah.
that I've been watching that's almost over.
Yeah. The floor is lava. I think I heard of that, and obviously I know the
Hmm.
concept, but human versus hamster, is it literally just like they pair up a human and a hamster and give them tasks and who completes them first? Or
Yeah, it's because a big thing, and again, I have an 18-year-old and a 3-year-old, and
hmm.
I kind I don't police what they watch probably as much as I should, but a big trend on YouTube is like these hamster challenges where
Hmm.
the people create these elaborate like hamster obstacle courses basically.
Ah.
And they video the hamster going through them. And so Human versus Hamster is that, but they also build a human size hamster obstacle course.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they build two of them that to scale. They built the hamster scale and the human scale,
Hmm.
and they run the two of them head to head and
Hmm.
to see which one finishes first. And I it's one of those where I'm not sure how accurate it is because it's not like they run it editless, so
Okay.
I kind of wonder if, and almost all of them are like down to just a few seconds.
Hmm.
It's always so close, so I feel like there has to be some editing trickery to where they make it closer in the cut, in
Hmm.
the edit, because I mean, the hamsters are always faster than the humans,
Hmm.
but the hamsters also have attention deficits, so they don't
Yes.
always do exactly what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it.
Hmm. Okay. I don't think I ever heard that of that show, to be honest. So,
I mean, it's brand new. It just, well, relatively brand new. It
hmm.
just came out like a past, a week or so ago. And if you have Max, depending on what you watch, they
Hmm.
kind of advertise it quite a bit.
Yeah, there's no HBO Max in the UK. Fortunately or unfortunately. So I cannot lie. I'm not gonna lie. That doesn't sound that intriguing to me, but I see how it could be enjoyable for like this would be like one of those shows like entire family can watch. Exactly as you said. If you have a 3-year-old, an 18-year-old, that's probably a safe bet to put on where both of them can kind of enjoy that.
Yeah,
So
my 18-year-old, whenever she came in, she's like, "What in the world is this? Why are you watching this?
she's me.
Who came up with this?"
Your 18-year-old sounds like me. I'm asking the same questions. Like, who came up with that idea? Like, I know there's a bit like running gag of like in John Oliver's like last week tonight that he's got an obsession with like hamsters in speedos. So like, and again, it's a random idea, but it's like now like a running gag. So okay, it's random but a kind of running gag. But now there's the entire competition about like hamsters against the human, and I'm like, fascinating. Okay. So besides the like TV shows and trashy TV shows and very good ones, is there anything else you are into? What are your like likes? What are your dislikes?
I'm also like a bit like not a huge gamer. These
Mm-hmm.
days I'm much more of a cozy gamer. I like, my wife has loved Sims forever,
Mm-hmm.
and she always loves like the character creation. And you know, I was about to say recently, but it's like 2.5 years old now. But Disney Dreamlight Valley,
Mm-hmm.
that's a game that we got, and that's kind of like most of what we play these days. And that's just a really fun, cozy game,
Mm-hmm.
especially because if you love movies and especially Disney movies, they have all these characters and they have fairly regular updates, every 2 to 3 months they'll introduce a new character, and
Mm-hmm.
that's always fun. Like they just added Jack Skellington earlier this year, and in the most recent update they added Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas. So
Yeah, for
that's fun.
Halloween,
And
Christmas. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Smart.
mhm.
Smart.
And they just had a new expansion that added Flynn Rider from Rapunzel,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Merida from Brave,
Mm-hmm.
and Hades from Hercules, and
Nice.
had three new areas. And that it's got a lot of it's a lot like Animal Crossing, where you can
Yeah.
collect items to decorate, and has a big decorating thing. So like I
Mm-hmm.
said, just a very cozy game. And then
Mm-hmm.
on the kind of other side of things, we recently got Dragon Age Inquisition, because we're a
Mm-hmm.
generation behind. So I know the Veilguard just came out, so we're one generation behind getting
Mm-hmm.
the Veilguard, and that's been fun too. I've been enjoying that game. That's got an interesting storyline, and
Mm-hmm.
okay, I do like to kind of mix things up, like uh, I like I'm kind of a collector. I like having games, different games, even though I don't always. I kind of stick to what I'm more comfortable with. Just go for the easy choice
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of times. So I have like a I like to have the different genres. Like, I like to have one fighting game and one racing game and one, like,
Mm-hmm.
I've just recently got the Disney Afternoon package,
Mm-hmm.
which is the NES era, the original DuckTales. I know they came out with the remastered version,
Okay.
which I think has a lot of quality of life improvements. But this is like the OG NES, NES difficulty, and playing that
Ah.
was kind of fun too. Just going back and remembering, oh my God, Nintendo games were so hard back then.
Yep. Back then when, they didn't they rarely even gave you like a tutorial. So they just like, threw
Mhm.
you into the game and like, okay, we designed the game, we produced it, and now it's your job to actually beat it. Good luck.
Yeah, you got to beat it by through trial and error, and it's
Yep.
got like the Chip and Dale and Darkwing Duck games and
Mm-hmm.
Tailspin,
Mm-hmm.
and those are fun. And they kind of, the one quality of life feature is it has a rewind button. So if you get hit, you can just rewind and then dodge it the next time.
Okay, that's good. So what would you say is since you're a gamer, what would you say is your like favorite game? Or do you have one?
Um, it's tough because it
Yep.
changes. I grew up on RPGs. Like, RPGs were always my favorite.
Yeah.
I started with the original Dragon. Well, back then it was called Dragon Warrior because
Mm.
of licensing issues at the time. Because I guess there was a Dragon Quest uh,
Mm-hmm.
something in the US. So on Nintendo, the first four Dragon Quest games were retitled the Dragon Warrior 1 through 4, and
Okay.
I loved those games. I had those, and the original Final Fantasy, and then moving on to the Super Nintendo, and again with the Japanese to US transition, they skipped a few Final Fantasies, and so Final Fantasy IV came over as Final Fantasy II on the Super Nintendo, and Final
Hmm.
Fantasy VI came over as Final Fantasy III. And Final Fantasy, 3/6 was a huge game whenever that came out. I love that. And of course, whenever the PlayStation came out and its big claim to fame was Final Fantasy VII. And
Yeah.
that was just at the time that was mind-blowing. It's like these graphics are amazing. And then
Hmm.
looking back on it and you have like the big triangle polygon characters
Hmm.
is just comical and even the CGI it's still good, but you can tell that it's late 90s CGI.
Yep. 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 PlayStation 1. It's I played some games on PlayStation 1. I've never had PlayStation 2, so I never upgraded. But yeah, like I still remember like Spyro. Well, I don't know if you ever played the Spyro Dragon.
Yeah,
That
I
was
was
a
familiar. I think
Yeah.
I never owned it. I think I might have rented it once or
Hmm.
twice.
That was quite a
My
cool game.
the game that I remember that was, kind of Spyro-like that I
Hmm.
ended up getting was a game called Pandemonium, which
Mm.
is like it's kind of similar, only it's a bit more on rails.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's still 3D, but the path was, much more linear, and
Hmm.
like the two main characters were like a clown. You
Ah.
could choose between a male or a female clown character, and it was, very brightly colored.
Hmm.
And that was, but it was kind of like, the Spyro Crash Bandicoot style of platformer.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. I don't think I ever played that, to be honest. But I was usually into just like the action games. Like, I still remember playing the original, not Call of Duty, it was the other one. Oh, Medal of Honor. Yes.
Hmm.
Originally came out on PlayStation 1. I don't know if original, but it did came out on PlayStation 1 first and second one. It was at the time, as you say, it was mind-blowing how real it looked. And we're talking like early 2001 too when I played it. So yeah, my tiny mind couldn't comprehend how, oh, I can actually shoot people and just like, from in my own comfortable in my own like living room and just so interesting. And now like if you look at the graphics of 2024, it's like nothing to compare. Like, it's there's even no comparison. You just see like polygons, hectic, all that, and nowadays it's almost real like,
Yeah,
real life
it's
like.
just
It's
like, yeah,
insane.
it's like practically live action with just a slight CGI sheen on it.
Yes, yes. And like soon, like give it 5 more years, and soon even they'll figure out like how to make it proper lifelike, where there will be trailers and video games where if you see a something, you might not know if it's a movie or if it's a video game. It's gonna be that good. Like I genuinely believe that. It's gonna be so
Although
insane.
I feel like these days it's kind of the market is shifting, and
Hmm.
I feel like indie and, throwback more simple but innovative games
Hmm.
are uh, are becoming more popular. Like
Hmm.
even like I didn't watch it, but I did kind of see that Astrobot got Game of the Year, and that is not it's not known for its realistic graphics. It's very
Yeah.
stylized, and it's kind of the newest platformer,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's more about the unique and fun gameplay than the most realistic uh, and best graphics. And the development time, especially like on the AAA games,
Hmm.
is getting so cost ineffective that it's like if you have, you spend 4 years and however millions of dollars, and it has to be a massive success, or else the studio will go bankrupt.
Yeah, that's no, it will be interesting to see. Like, look, I'm no longer a gamer. Like, I do have PlayStation 4, but I haven't switched it on in like 2 years, to be honest. Because yeah, like my entire free time pretty much is devoted to movies, TV shows, and all that. So,
Hmm.
you know, there's not enough time. for me to actually play anything. Like, yeah, it is what it is. So like I'll believe you when it comes to, it's shifting towards. But again, I kind of understand because nowadays it's more like, yeah, we've seen it all. You think of it, we've already seen it, and it's more about like, what will sell, any new ideas that people will rally behind and say, oh, this is pretty cool concept. It might not be the best graphics, but it's a fucking cool concept. So let's go and give this a shot. And
Yeah,
that's like
and I'm
it's kind of
much
like
more willing
movies.
to spend, yeah, and I'm much more willing to spend $5, $10 on,
Hmm.
a 10-year-old game like Dragon Age Inquisition than I am to
Hmm.
spend $70 on the newest title and,
Yep.
spend $500 on a PlayStation 5, even though like I do really want to play like the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which
Mm.
is, but at the same time, it's like there's so much of a cost barrier to get that. And once I buy it, I know that I'm not going to have time to really play it as much as I want to.
Yep. No, I get you. I get you. It's that kind of like, when you were a kid, you didn't have money, but you had all the time in the world, so you could play anything you wanted. And now when you're adult and you can actually buy stuff for yourself, you don't have the time because you're making all the money.
Yeah.
It's just one of those, isn't it?
Mhm.
So where are
And the
you?
time that you do have, you want to spend on or with other people
Yes,
rather than
yes.
playing solo video games.
Obviously, in your case, like family, like, two kids, mother-in-law living with you, your wife, all, like it is full house. So, you
Mm.
must be a very busy man. I do see that. So, where are you based? Like in America?
I'm in the Atlanta suburbs.
Oh, Atlanta suburbs.
Yeah.
Okay. Georgia, then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I've lived here about 4 years now, but
Okay.
before that, I was much more, the rest of my life was moving around in the Midwest
Mm-hmm.
a lot. So I grew up in Central Illinois. I spent a year in Kentucky, a few years, um, and just south of Indianapolis, Indiana. Spent several years in the Chicago suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
So I've kind of had I've been pretty nomadic in my adult life, and in fact, like we have a house here now, and we've been in this house for 2.5 years,
Mm-hmm.
which is which is nearly twice as long as we've lived in any previous address since I moved out of my parents' house.
Wow. So you like it there so much.
Yeah, it's nice. I'm enjoying it. I
Mm-hmm.
think I think this might be one of your this or that questions, but I'm much more of a summer person.
Okay.
So especially moving from Chicago, the Chicago suburbs to the Atlanta suburbs,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, we barely have any winter. It's like it's cold, but it'll be cold for a week and then it'll be back in the 50s for a week in December.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like right now, mid-December, it's 50 degrees outside.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's fascinating. So what makes that area, or what makes like the Atlanta suburbs so great? Like so for example, if I were to come for a week, what would you say? Like you need to see this, you need to see that, we need to go there, we will eat there, we need to eat there. What makes it so great for you? And what would you recommend for somebody who's never been anywhere in America? What would you recommend for me to see there?
I mean, this is kind of a tough question for me
Mm-hmm.
because I'm kind of like lower middle class with a family.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we've lived here almost 3 years, we haven't done a lot of the tourist stuff. I'm kind of a homebody. I
Yeah.
we'll go out and do stuff like not even once a month really, or if we do, it's like we go out to eat to like a chain restaurant that's anywhere. Um, but like and funny enough, one of the first things that we did do as kind of a touristy thing was we went to the Coke Museum because
Oh,
Coca-Cola originated in Atlanta, and
I don't know if I
that
knew
that
that
was actually
actually.
pretty interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So how was the Coke Museum then?
And that it was surprisingly interesting, but you know, it wasn't interesting enough for us to like go back every year. We
Yeah.
we're glad that we went there. It was fun. Uh, they do have a neat area where kind of towards the end they have like a soda fountain that has different soda flavors from around the world.
Okay.
And like I think also maybe some discontinued ones. So you can taste sodas that you never had before. And I know one of them is called like Beverly, and that's like the most disgusting thing anybody's ever tasted. And it's like, why do people drink this? And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
want to say it's like in Brazil is kind of where it's popular. It's like, how do people like this?
Well, we just lost
But
all the Brazilian listeners. Like maybe all like maybe two people. Sorry, Brazil. No, but okay, okay. So, do they acknowledge? I'm guessing they must acknowledge their past, like in a, how Coke or like started, why it started, that there
yeah,
was
I mean
cocaine in it, all that.
they do kind of glorify it a little bit. I mean, not the
Okay.
cocaine part,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
which I do think that that is like a little bit overblown because I think it's um, one of the ingredients was like it's you know the cocoa or I don't think it's cocoa, but like the plants that they used as an ingredient in
Coca.
Coke originally,
Yeah.
yeah, coca, it can also be used to make cocaine, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not, it's not like they put cocaine in
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Coca-Cola, but it's kind of one step back from cocaine.
Yeah. Okay. So besides that, you wouldn't, because you're fairly new to that area, and you really, as you said, you're a homebody. You don't really have many recommendations. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I know like there's a lot of stuff downtown. Like
Mm-hmm.
I mean we have seen like the zoo and the aquarium.
Mm-hmm.
Those are both pretty fun, especially, that's those are good family activities too. And one thing that I'm disappointed that we haven't gone to yet, which I want to, we're hoping to go this summer, is the Six Flags down here.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Because that's something that, I've never been to Disney World or Disneyland, but I've been to
Same.
like four different Six Flags across the country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because growing up in Illinois, we lived just a couple hours from St. Louis, so we went to Six Flags St. Louis,
Mm-hmm.
several times. I've been there like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And then living in Chicago, and even before that, my sister has lived in the Chicago. My older sister, she's about 10 years older.
Mm-hmm.
She lived in the Chicago area for a long time, so we've been to the Chicago Six Flags a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And she used to live in Phoenix, Arizona. And one time I visited her, and uh, whenever I was a teenager and she was an adult working there, I visited her for like a week, and she took me to the Six Flags in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I was trying to decide if I wanted to take you to Disneyland or Six Flags. And, you know, she thought, since I was like 17 at the time, I think she thought that I would prefer Six Flags,
Mm-hmm.
which I think she was right. It's tough for me to say because I am a big Disney fan, but I don't know. I love the roller coaster. Like in this theme park, I love the roller coasters much more. Like I think whenever I was 19, one of the first kind of solo trips as I did as a quote unquote adult was me and my friend drove from central Illinois, 2 states over to Ohio
Mm-hmm.
to go to Cedar Point, which that was, I think it still is. They hold the record for the theme park with the most roller coasters, which at
Okay.
the time I think it was 13. I think it's more now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Fascinating. All right. Like I obviously like I've never been to Six Flags because I'm pretty sure it's like pretty much just American thing, isn't it? I don't think it's anywhere
Uh,
past America.
I am not sure. I think it probably is. I think it's just Disney that's kind of had the theme parks outside of the US.
Yes, and Disney obviously is worldwide. There's like Disney in China, there's Disney in like closest to me is Paris. So, but I still have not been to any Disney, either park or world. So, yeah. Or like, Orland, sorry, should I say Disneyland? Disney World. Yes. I never been to either of those, but hoping to go to the Paris one at some point. Maybe next year. I don't know. You know how it is.
Yeah,
It's always
although
like
I feel like,
finances.
yeah, and I also feel like Disney Paris is always kind of the butt of jokes in the theme park community. We're like the
Mhm.
uh, outskirts of the theme park community. Like Disney Paris is kind of the joke of the Disneys.
From what I understand, they've actually improved because like I have a friend who's been there twice, and like she just returned like 2 months ago from the last time, and they're like, oh, they've expanded so much, and they are building much more. Like we've already seen, they are working on another whole wing where there's gonna be, I cannot remember what she said, but it was like something else is coming in like next year. So if you were to go next year, there's gonna be, it's gonna be even larger. Like she had a good time, and she did visit the one in Florida as well because she loves Disney as well. So she's visited one in Florida, and she also loved that. So I don't know. Again, don't know. Would look to see it. But yeah. So no other recommendations. Nothing at all.
No, not really anything I can think of.
Okay. All right. I think with that we can move to this or that, where I'll give you two choices, and you'll tell me which one would you prefer. So, iOS or Android?
Android. It's funny
Android.
because my mother-in-law, she recently got an iPhone,
Mm-hmm.
and she like switched from a Samsung to an iPhone, and she's like, I have no idea how to work this thing, and she ended up getting locked out of her Apple account, and she still hasn't gotten back into it. It's like her phone is still usable, but she can't like do anything that needs the Apple account. Like she can't download any more new apps.
Yeah.
And it's been a huge fight because it's like, well, you have to have a receipt that has your serial number. It's like you have to have this, this, and this,
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Mm-hmm.
very secure, which it's great in a way, so no one else gets into your Apple account. But if you accidentally lock yourself out and don't know exactly what you need, it's so hard to get yourself back in
Yeah, Apple's
because
ecosystem
they
is
require
good.
all this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it's good when it works. Like, Apple ecosystem is great when it works, and it's great, like quite well protected, but it's so great, such a great, it's so protected that sometimes it locks you out and you're fucked. Unless you have all the backups, unless you have all the like serial numbers, all the codes, all the, oh, you bought it like, 5 years ago, you better have that receipt. Otherwise, nope, you're not getting your account back.
Yeah, and my wife also, I think like 2 phones ago, she got an Apple,
Hmm.
and she like switching. It's especially tough if you're like trying to switch from one to the other.
Yep.
And I warned her ahead of time. It's like, you're used to Android, you're not gonna know how to do anything on the Apple. And
Hmm.
she thought it was okay, but the next phone after was back to an Android.
Yeah, that's fair. So I
But at
guess
the
I
same time,
know.
she doesn't like mine, which I have a Pixel 6,
Oh, nice.
and it's her big thing with that, which it did take me a little while to get used to, but it has like gestures on it. So
Yep.
um like if you're going to, like on her phone, if you want to go back on anything, you have to push the back button at the bottom.
Hmm.
But with the Pixel 6, it has the gesture. So you can just swipe from
Yep.
the side and
Hmm.
that's the back. But if you're like scrolling side to side things, then it's very easy to accidentally activate the swipe gesture and then go back instead of swiping to the next item. And
Yeah.
that's kind of something that you have to get used to.
Hmm.
So whenever you're like scrolling through things side to side, to start your finger in the middle of the screen and swipe over. Because if you start from the edge of the screen, then you're going to trigger that swipe gesture.
Oh yeah, it's quite easy to trigger if you don't know or if you're not used to that. Definitely. That's, and
Mhm.
that's why it's so fun to switch from one phone to another. Like it's just like, "Oh, how do I do this again on iPhone?" Oh, like this. Okay, okay. So I think I know the next one because you kind of tipped your head, but let's see. TV shows or movies?
Uh, I think 5 years ago I would have said movies,
Hmm.
but I do think TV shows because I think especially these days that the prestige shows are becoming more cinematic and more storytelling. And
Hmm.
even like going back, my favorite TV show for a long time, and I'd still probably have it in my top 10 is Babylon 5.
Okay.
And that's a show that's its big thing. It was this long interconnected 5 year story arc that's
Mm.
it was told across 5 whole seasons, and there are things that they set up in the first season that don't get paid off until the fifth season, and things like that. And
Hmm.
that is just such a good story, and you can't tell that kind of long form story that have all this character development in just 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like 1.5 to 3 hours these days is
Hmm.
kind of the runtime for a movie. And movies are great, but uh, I also like the serialized nature of a TV show that because I'm not a binge person. Like I'm not somebody that will sit down and watch a 10 episode series back to back to back, like over the
Hmm.
course of 1 or 2 days.
Hmm.
Like my current kind of show that I'm enjoying and I'm kind of doing a watch through is Doctor Who.
Oh, nice.
And I almost never watch more than 2 episodes in a row. And
Hmm.
most of the time, if I'm doing that, it's because it's a two-part episode. So, I'll watch part one and then go into part two. And sometimes even that I'll like split, but you know,
Hmm.
it's it's a show that's kind of the show that I'm focused on, but it's still I only watch like one episode a day because, I want to savor it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get you. So TV shows for you then.
Mhm.
Fair. Tea or coffee?
Coffee. Although I have been cutting back,
Hmm.
and uh, whenever I go to a restaurant, I do often get sweet tea,
Mm.
but I think I definitely drink more coffee than tea.
How do you take your coffee?
Uh, I take it with quite a bit of cream and sugar. I do like it pretty sweet, or I'd go with the uh like ice drinks, which I I haven't in a while, but a lot of times I refer to that as like basically grown up chocolate milk.
Yes. Yes. Quite a lot of those ice drinks can have quite a lot of sugar. So yeah.
Hmm.
No, I see what you mean. Money or free time?
This is a tougher question because
Hmm.
I feel like money will eventually get you free time.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, yeah, and I think I am gonna go with money,
Hmm.
especially because, I'm a family person, and even if I don't have the free time, the money allows what free time I do have to be more high quality.
Hmm.
And also money allows my loved ones to have free time and to have more entertaining free time.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. Honesty or other people's feelings?
Um, I think other people's feelings because I tend to be relatively empathetic,
Hmm.
and I'm the type of person, and that this has actually happened to me before. Like I'm uh actually weirdly enough, last year around Christmas time, we were shopping at a Kohl's, like just a department store,
Hmm.
and our daughter was 2 years old at the time, it was a year ago, and we were trying on shoes, and the little shoe stool was kind of half broken, and it kind of has like the mirror, and it's kind of enclosed a little bit, and our daughter found this envelope with money in it,
Ooh.
and
Like, was
it
it like
it
a stacked
had
envelope?
yeah, it was like I kind of, the story that we kind of came up with was it was probably like an older, to make ourselves feel better, an older, well-off person that's,
Yeah.
someone that they went Christmas shopping, and so they got their Christmas money out in cash and put it in, from the bank to
Hmm.
go Christmas shopping in Kohl's, and they lost it. But there was part of us. And it was like it was a significant amount of money. Like it was like, $300, I think.
Hmm, okay.
Like 300 to 400.
Hmm.
So it was a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
And we kind of, we spent some time looking around. We spent some time like, what should we do? Like, but it had no identifying. It was just a plain paper envelope with cash in it, and it's like,
Hmm.
there's no way to know where this came from.
Yep.
And, part of us is very much like, oh, I would feel so bad if this was like, somebody they got their money, they got their Christmas money and they lost it and they didn't have the money to give their
Hmm.
family a good Christmas. But it's like, no, you can't think that way. So, and I've definitely I've also been um in another similar situation where I we happened to overhear like this group of teenage girls
Hmm.
um talking to themselves like they were looking for their wallet. And I found it
Hmm.
and I was able to find them and give it back to them.
No, that's
And
good.
that's kind of a good feeling. So definitely other people's feelings.
That's fair. That's fair. So now the question comes up, which you predicted, summer or winter?
As summer, definitely. Like I
Hmm.
do not like the cold at all. Like I am definitely summer heat. I will take that any day over sub-zero, sub-freezing temperatures.
And summer in like Georgia or Atlanta, they are quite warm, aren't they? Or hot even.
So yeah, I was thinking about that. It is like humid, but at the same time, Central Illinois, the summer is very hot and humid as well.
Hmm.
And I think because Georgia has a lot of greenery, that it has a lot of trees and forests, and that helps to moderate the temperature. Because especially this past summer,
Hmm.
I feel like I saw a lot of, East Coast had like an over 100-degree heat wave. Like Texas had, a lot of 100-degree heat waves. But I felt like the Georgia area, the Atlanta area was mostly kind of peaked at high 90s.
Hmm.
So I don't think we really got a whole lot of, triple digit temperatures this past summer. It was, you know, more relatively moderate.
Yeah.
I mean, the only kind of bad thing is the mosquitoes, which
Mm.
that is really bad in a lot of areas and a lot of the times of year, especially whenever it is very wet. We do get a lot of mosquitoes, which sucks.
Hmm. Yeah, that's I would imagine. Do you have a like a mosquito net in your windows?
Uh, I mean, actually, no, we we don't. We just, we're either inside or outside. We do kind of have a sunroom, and so we did get like that was kind of the one that didn't have a storm door or screen door, and we did buy like a kind of those magnets, the screen
Hmm.
that has all the magnets in the middle, and then you just kind of walk through, and then the magnets close it back up. And we did get one of those this past year.
Okay, and it helps.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, because like I know I'm always surprised because where I come from, it's quite normal to have a like this kind of a net installed even in your like a window frame. So you can open a window in the summer mainly, and none of the bugs or like, flies and stuff like that come to your house, or at least not through the window because there's a net.
Hmm.
And but many countries, ever since I've discovered, they don't really do that. And I'm like, really? Like, and we're talking like a warm countries where there's mosquitoes and there's like, flies and all kinds of different insects. And I'm like, like a wee net in a window goes a long way, especially in some other countries. And I'm like, how is that not a standard here? I don't understand.
I think in a lot of ways the reliance on central air and air
Hmm.
conditioning. So there's much less having a window open to get a breeze. It's like No, I'll just turn the air conditioner on to cool it down in here.
Yeah, yeah, I'm guessing because yeah, like where I come from, air conditioning is I guess a thing only in like offices and office buildings. But like at your home, no, not really. We just open the window, and if you're cold, you close that window. It's as simple as it gets. Um, Ninjas or pirates?
Uh, I think ninjas. It is kind of close,
Hmm.
because I do enjoy like the Pirates of the Caribbean
Hmm.
series. I even kind of the later ones, which aren't quite as good.
Yeah.
But especially in terms of movies, there's a lot better movies with ninjas than there are with pirates. So, really there is just kind of the Pirates of the Caribbean,
Hmm.
and that's about it. Practically, or uh, I and so, like I guess the other big one is like Muppet Treasure Island.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, not a fan of Cutthroat Island, the Gina Davis, the infamous Gina Davis flop movie that lost a lot of money.
Yeah, I haven't watched that one.
I don't think it's bad. I don't like, look, I've only seen it once or twice when I was really little, and I thought it was solid, but also it was apparently so non-profitable, aka lost a shit ton of money that until it took Pirates of Caribbean to, actually make a pirate movie again, which was almost over a decade, I think. So yeah, Hollywood was scared because that and Waterworld lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's yeah, don't stay away from the water. That was the rule in Hollywood for a bit. Last question: free will or destiny?
Yeah, a part of me likes the romanticism of Destiny,
Hmm.
and especially because I'm a big fantasy fan, and like the fantasy movies are so many of them are centered around Destiny or the Destined One. Yeah,
Yeah.
and video games as well. That's like RPGs. They're always like you're playing the Destined One. That's
Yeah.
that is set to, you start out fighting rats and you end up killing God.
Hmm. Hmm. So you're
So
you're skewing more towards the destiny part rather than free will.
yeah,
Okay.
I think Destiny, and especially, in a way, like more as a fictional concept,
Hmm.
than the reality of it. But yeah, I do like the romanticism of Destiny.
So in a reality, in your own, not own world, but like in your own mind, how you think about your life, where do you still skew more towards destiny, or do you believe, no, I can pretty much do whatever I want because I have a free will to do so.
Yeah, I do think that it's more skewed towards free will. But there's always that little bit that's, maybe I was destined to do it, especially
Yeah.
whenever your life is on a more positive track,
Hmm.
and even some of the coincidences too that you end up having in life, because even like one interesting coincidence that's helped to get me here to the Atlanta area was that whenever I was in the Indianapolis area,
Hmm.
my boss at my current job, like the district manager, he moved to Georgia, and then, 10 years later, he's the district manager in Georgia, and he remembered me, and it's like, oh yeah, I can help you get transferred over to this area.
Hmm.
So that made things much easier.
Okay, that is nice. That is very nice actually of that boss. Okay, I see what you mean. Okay. And before we move to the Flix part of the podcast, do you have any hot takes or you're willing to share with us?
Um, why I know that later on we get a movie themed hot take, but
Hmm.
I kind of both my hot takes are movie themed,
That's
and
fine.
the the one which I kind of I floated out on threads, and got a little bit of interactions on that, and it feels like this is something it grows every year.
Hmm.
And that's the discourse of, is Die Hard a Christmas movie or
Ah,
not?
yeah.
And my point of view is that any movie that takes place during Christmas, especially if like the vast majority
Hmm.
is during Christmas or Christmas time, is a Christmas movie.
Yeah. So, okay, so is that your hot take that Die Hard is a Christmas movie?
Well, I mean, not just Die Hard, but any movie that takes place during Christmas can be a
Okay.
Christmas movie. So it like a lot of ones that I've again been seeing recently is Prometheus is a Christmas movie because on the ship,
Oh
Idris Elba's
yeah.
character has a Christmas tree.
Oh yeah, they do. Well, recently we've also had Terrifier 3 for all the horror fans, and that's specifically over Christmas, so that's one of the few. Well, there was some horror movies, but this is like the probably quote unquote the best one that takes place over Christmas.
Yeah,
So,
there's a handful. Like
yeah.
I think I've only seen like one because I think
Mhm.
it's is it Black Christmas?
Oh yeah, yeah. The original and I cannot remember the remake. But to be fair, that remake was awful. So like we can forget the remake. The original, yes, definitely takes place close to the Christmas. I don't know if it's just over like a Christmas Eve or like stops there, but it takes place just before, I think. Yeah, and the original is a great movie. The remake, not so much.
Yeah, and I know I feel like it's calmed down a little bit, although there was I think I know Red One features a Krampus, but like Krampus is something that's kind of regained popularity within the past 5 years or so, where there
Mhm.
was a bunch of Krampus horror movies that came out.
And there was literally a movie called Krampus with Toni Collette, with none other than Toni Collette. Like 2015, I want to say, and that's surprisingly decent horror-ish movie. And you mean the red one that just dropped on Amazon Prime with The Rock and Chris Evans? Well, it
Yes.
is definitely a Christmas movie because the entire plot is. Have you seen it yet, by the way?
No, I have not seen it. I saw the trailer for it whenever I went to see Deadpool and Wolverine. And it was funny because the trailer came on and I was watching that with my wife, and my wife said, "That movie looks so good." And I
Mhm.
said, "That movie looks like trash."
See, I'll say, okay, I watched it 2 days ago because it literally just dropped on Amazon Prime, which is fucking insane because it opened in the cinemas like 3, 4 weeks ago. So that was
Well,
fast.
I believe I heard that it was it started out its life as an Amazon Prime movie,
Yes,
and then it
yes.
it tested well enough that they put money into a theatrical release.
Hmm. And I'll say to your point, like your wife said it looked good, you said it looks like trash. I was in your camp, like when I saw the just not even a trailer, I saw the trailer in like as an ad in on YouTube when I'm like watching YouTube videos and you get ads. So that's the only frame of reference I had for that movie, like the 30-second ad, and I'm like, this looks bad. And then it dropped on Amazon, and I'm like, you know what? I'll watch it because I always want to see for myself, no matter what I hear, no matter how it looks. It's okay. It's the I think that was my like letterbox review. It's the most okay, movie that's ever okayed, and which is good because it's not as trashy. It actually looks kind of decent, but also it's bad because of like the talent involved, like Chris Evans, Lucy Liu, like you get J.K. Simmons, who's like this like a very fit Santa. Like all the talent involved. It should be better than okay, but also the premise and how ridiculous it is. Okay, is probably the best this movie could have ever gotten. So yeah, like you can definitely spend 2 hours and 8 minutes of your time much worse. I'll tell you that.
Well, I mean, my in my blogging career, I started out and um, my I mean it's still up, but I did written reviews for superhero movies, and
Mhm,
I watched, I managed to find and review over 500
mhm.
superhero movies, and so many of those are the okayest movie that's ever okayed.
Yep, yep. I would imagine like yes. So like Die Hard, like I always said like it's such a silly argument, but I'm like, yeah. Look, I think I've had somebody here who's like definitely not a Christmas movie, and I'm like, I see it. Like I also see it as being Christmas movie, and it's kind of like is hot dog a sandwich debate, which is definitely it's not. It's a taco. Like if you've seen, there's a graphic of like how how
Mhm.
sandwiches and tacos work. If
Yeah.
anything, the hot dog is a taco, and also who cares? I always like, isn't it more important question who actually cares? Like, it's a fun thing. Like, I'm not gonna get riled up either way. Do I, have I watched it on Christmas evening? I might have once or twice. Yeah, yeah. Did it make my Christmas more awesome? It did. If it doesn't make your Christmas more awesome, I guess don't watch it on Christmas. Just, it's still a great movie.
Yeah, I think the other one that comes up
Hmm.
once in a while is Lord of the Rings.
Oh, what about it?
That's you know the I mean it the movie itself has absolutely nothing to do with Christmas, but there
Hmm.
is a relatively large number of people that feel like Lord of the Rings is a Christmas movie, and they'll do a Christmas Day marathon of the Lord of the Rings movies, and that's something that I myself did, whenever Return of the King came out, because it came out in December. That I did the
Yeah.
the the Christmas Day extended edition marathon where I watched the extended Fellowship, extended Two Towers, and then I went to the theater to see Return of the King.
Nice. I've already stated this on my podcast, so I'll repeat it. I am not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. However, I acknowledge it's my teenage angst in me. I do need to rewatch those movies and give them their fake shake because I know they are not as bad as I've rated it on Letterboxd and other platforms. So I wanted to do it this year, but I don't think I'll manage. So hopefully next year. But I definitely want to because I have not even seen the Hobbit movies yet. Because for me, The Lord of the Rings is for some reason I love fantasy, I love sci-fi, all that stuff. That did not hit me, and I was really against it when it came out. And teenage angst in me. That's it. And now I recognize Teenage Angsty Me was an idiot. So I need to go back and I want to do exactly what you said. I know of the special editions, obviously. So I want to actually rewatch all three movies as the special editions, which one is like 4 hours, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, Return of the King, that's definitely like extended Return of the King is 4 hours, and that's a movie I will say I'm a fan of those movies, but it's been over a decade since I've watched any of them. I think I've rewatched Fellowship by itself,
Hmm.
uh, the most recent, but it's again going back to that time. It's so hard to devote 24 hours
Yep.
practically, to three movies. And especially, I have the DVDs,
Hmm.
so like the extended edition are split across two discs.
Yep, yep. No, I hear you. Again, I next year definitely needs to be like I do want to watch all three movies and then finally get the Hobbit movies watched, which I know they don't have the best reputation even amongst like Tolkien fans and or like fantasy fans, but I still want to watch them just to, again, just to form my own opinion rather than just listen to what other people have to say.
Yeah, and,
So,
and I think I own the first two Hobbit movies,
mhm.
which I've only seen them once, and I have not even seen Battle of the Five Armies.
Oh, damn. So you were so disappointed by both of the previous ones that you didn't even finish the trilogy.
Well, I mean, it wasn't that I was disappointed.
Mhm.
I thought they were okay. Like I wasn't, super hard on the Hobbit movies. I thought they were perfectly fine. But although I have no memory whatsoever of the Smog movie, I know I've seen it once. I could not tell you a single plot point from it.
That's fair. That's fair. But again, like I've heard, I only thing I heard about those movies are they are perfectly fine, and they should never be like a trilogy. That
Yeah, they're absolutely unnecessary to
yes,
to make the shortest book
yes.
longer than the original trilogy.
Yes, so like from what I've heard, and I think originally they were supposed to be just two movies, and
Mhm.
apparently it shows that they kind of stretched it and also added so many bits that are not in the book into those movies. Like famously, the actress Evangeline Lilly, her character is apparently all made up. Like she is nowhere to be seen in the books. She was just made up for the movies. Don't know.
Yeah, but then I do kind of that kind of uh, you know, jumping into a slightly different hot take of woke filmmaking
Ooh,
that I kind of appreciate, and bringing in a female character because have you seen the cut of Lord of the Rings that is the only time that two female characters talk to each other?
no, no, I have not.
It's literally one line
Mhm,
whenever I think Awen says something to a little girl.
mhm.
She has like one line, and that's it. The entire Lord of the Rings, that's the only time two female characters talk to each other.
I'm I'm not surprised, I'm guessing, because it's not that kind of movie that I would imagine had some sort of or was striving to make some sort of agenda, like or not agenda, kind of a statement like that. But again, I have not seen either in a very long time. Like Lord of the Rings movie, Hobbit, I've never watched. Lord of the Rings movie, I've only seen once each movie, and it must be now over almost 20 years. Or yeah, or almost 20 years because obviously they came out 2000, well the last one came out 2003, so right around that time. And no, no, again, teenage angst was an idiot. Like, of me, like, no. But okay, let's move to the flex part of this podcast, and we might get to your second hot take at some point. It'll be interesting to hear. But before that, I'll ask you, what is the last new movie you would rate 5 out of 5? So anything 2020s onward.
That it's kind of tough because
Hmm.
I'm one of those where I'm not super stingy with my 5 out of 5
Okay.
ratings, but especially looking back at the different at my letterbox because I do I don't track the TV shows that I watch, but I do track every movie that I watch on Letterboxd, and I kind of give them like just a gut rating.
Yeah.
That's anytime I podcast um, or whenever I did my written reviews, I never had uh, ratings as part of the review.
Hmm.
But I do put them on Letterboxd, and I think it's been a while since I had, something that I rated on Letterboxd a 5 out of 5. But there is, a couple that I think are, on Letterboxd I gave them either like 4 or 4.5.
Hmm.
But I think that they're worth talking about. And I think they would be, 5 out of 5 for somebody.
Okay.
And just quickly, I do want to mention Bottoms, which is kind of, I actually did a podcast on that on my Fight Club Minute podcast as kind of a bonus episode
Hmm.
because it's like this lesbian girl Fight Club movie, and it's so
It's
it's really
funny.
bizarre, but it's funny. And it's just so unique and weird. And it was not what I expected going into it, but I did kind
Same.
of love it.
See, I wrote about that movie. Imagine if Family Guy somehow, lesbian and in live action. That's like literally the same kind of humor as like if you told me Seth MacFarlane did like screen polishing of that movie, I would be like that makes so much fucking sense. That's that type of humor, like nonsensical, like there's like almost no stakes in a climactic fight. The people literally die and then everything is fine. And I'm like, that feels like a Family Guy sketch, but it's a lesbian movie. And like
Yeah,
it's like
and they yeah, they kill somebody and they treat it like, I
yeah,
think we actually killed that guy. And then
yes.
that's all the entire amounts that they give to
Or
it.
it's like the Anchorman, movie is like, did you just kill somebody with a spear? I might have. And just like
But the other one, which I watched more recently, is
Mhm.
Fall. Have you seen that one?
Is it
Uh,
the one about a
it,
tower? Like they come
yeah,
on. Oh, I have seen that one. Talk to me about it because I have my opinion on that movie. Tell me.
yeah, that was a movie I had heard about whenever it came out,
Hmm.
and it was just so. interesting and like such kind of a low budget movie and like very much like a kind of like bottle. If it was a TV, it would be like a bottle episode would be what
Yes.
it was called. It's
Yes.
very self-contained, almost kind of like I haven't seen it, but like 127 hours, like that kind of movie.
That's a great movie.
As someone like I figure more people probably heard of 127 hours, but it's kind
Yeah.
of like that. It's a very similar plot line, but instead of being stuck in a crevice, they are stuck at the top of this tall this abandoned radio tower out in the middle of nowhere,
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, to where the final ladder fell off because of age, and they have no way to get down
Yes.
because they only have 50 feet of rope, and the next platform is like 200 feet down.
Yeah. So you really like that movie then?
Yeah, I thought it was really great. It was kind of disappointing, and I don't want to spoil it, and it's kind of hard to even talk
Yep.
around it
Yep.
without spoiling it but there is a revelation in the movie that you
Hmm.
don't expect towards the end.
Yes.
And I knew about that going into it, and
Ah.
part of me kind of wishes that I didn't because I'm kind of curious if I would have sussed it out on my own.
Hmm.
Um, because there's definitely clues to it, and in a way, kind of spoiler, but like coming from doing a my podcast on Fight Club, I kind of should feel like I would have caught on to it.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, I just really enjoyed it, and there's so many interesting things, and I kind of knew where it was going, but it does have several fake outs towards the end as well,
Yep.
where you think that the resolution is going to happen one way, and then it doesn't. And I really like how they ended it, and also even though he doesn't have a big role, but I can't think of his name, but the father from Supernatural,
Oh yeah.
the actor, it was great to see him. And although the two women in the movie are relatively unknown, like
Hmm.
I didn't recognize them from anything, but I think they gave a pretty good performance. And the filmmaking itself too, the fact that they built that tower on this this mountain, they built like the top uh 20, 30 feet of this tower, so it was filmed practically. It
Hmm.
wasn't just like all green screen. They really were like kind of at the top of this mountain, so like all these views were actual actually filmed properly. I thought the filmmaking out of it was really great to see too.
Yeah. So the father is Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I don't.
Yeah.
I had to look it up because I remember exactly. I was like, oh, he's in the movie, cool, and then he's not, because most of the time he spent with the two actresses, Grace Carolyn Curry and Virginia Gardner, which the first one is more of a big name because she was in a Shazam movie or movies. I don't know if she was
Oh
only in the
yeah.
second one. And I'll say like, I kind of liked Fall. My biggest issue with that was just I feel like the writing, like for especially the not the main girl but the other one, it was just there are moments where they are so grating. I'm like, I kind of wish you die and actually fall and die, like genuinely, like and like because they make such like dumb decisions to to get them into this predicament. I'm like, oh, this must happen, this must happen, this must okay, like dumb decision on top of them. I'm like, oh, Jesus. But those scenes, you feel like you're on top of that tower with them, and it like I don't think I have a fear of heights, but that movie like made me feel like, oh, damn, that yeah, I would never do that shit. Just, but
Yeah,
it's a
definitely
fascinating
has some
movie.
great moments of tension in there,
Yes, yes.
and yeah, the and does a good job at capturing the sense of height.
No, like I started watching this movie with my girlfriend, and like she was like, "Oh, I might stay here if it's a good." And then when she like discovered what this is about and like saw the height, I'm like, "No, I'm out. Fuck this." And this is too tense for me. I'm like, "Okay, that makes sense. Makes sense."
Yeah,
No, but
my wife was kind of my wife was the same. Like
see.
she suffers from vertigo
Mhm.
on occasion, so she's like, no, I physically cannot watch this movie.
And I'll say like again, like at times I was sweating, but at times like then something happened story wise. I'm like, but that kind of takes me out of the movie. Like, don't do this. And like the ending was like I did appreciate the twist without spoiling it. Like I did appreciate that. I thought the ending was like, oh, okay, that's done, and then the movie is done, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of anticlimactic. Like without again giving anything away because it is still quite a recent movie. I just thought, okay, maybe we could have used 10 more minutes to kind of I'm like, all right, what do I know? No, but like overall, I thought it's worth a watch. But yeah, if you suffer from like vertigo or you don't appreciate heights, probably don't watch that. That would be a nightmare. So, what would be the last teen quote unquote movie you would rate 5 out of 5? Anything between 2003 and 2019.
Yeah, this was another kind of I felt like I had to go back a ways in my
Hmm.
letterbox because I was looking at my at like the years of the movies that I've watched over the past like 4 or 5 months, and it's like, all right,
Hmm.
2023, 2024, 1990, 1986. Like
Yeah.
it kind of either recent movies or 80s and 90s movies. It was a lot
Hmm.
of them. But I think the last one was another one that I watched for one of my podcasts because
Hmm.
I did a series on 50 First Dates,
Oh.
I um, and then I kind of followed that up with some more Adam Sandler movies.
Hmm.
And the best one that I watched for the first time, last this past spring was Uncut Gems.
Oh,
And
damn. Okay.
yeah, and that was a movie like I heard so much about it, and it's it, and on top of that, like finding a guest for that movie was surprisingly hard because like a lot of people that I talk to or like, I love that movie, but I don't want to watch it again. Or, it's so like I went through like 6 or 7 people that told me like, that was a great movie, but no, I don't want it. Like I'm not able to come on to talk about it and watch it again. It just like gave me so much anxiety watching it.
I
And
was gonna mention like you're like such a chill guy like calm, cool, collected, and your first two picks are Fall and Uncut Gems. Like the image I'm seeing and like your voice and everything does not match with those two choices. Like you surprised me, sir. But like that's a great like yeah because that's like the anxiety of the movie like pretty much like just like oh my fucking God, this guy is just ruining his life, but it's like I cannot stop watching it. Like,
yeah, it's one of those where it's like he is making every mistake. Like, I feel bad for him up to a certain point, but then I would say like roughly about halfway to the movie, I
mhm.
stopped feeling bad for him because it's like it sucks what you're going through, but you're bringing this on yourself, man.
Yep. And I think actually thinking about it now, this is a great example how to do the unlikable character very well. Like we talked about Fall, and my big issue with that was like those characters at times could be very unlikable, and you're supposed to root for them. Uncut Gems does this very well, where you kind of see, yeah, like half, as you say, halfway through you see quite clearly there's no helping this guy because no man, every time he gets slightly ahead where he could just quit, he doesn't because he's so addicted to that kind of rush. He needs to do this. He needs to do this. And but you
Yeah,
understand
he's got to
him.
double down because
Yes.
he's not he won't be satisfied with just covering his debts. He has to
Yes. He wants
cover
to
his
win.
debts and also get the jackpot.
Yes. And like so you understand him. Like even though you don't agree with that guy whatsoever, or I would imagine most people wouldn't, but you understand like how deeply flawed that character is, but at the same time you kind of understand him, but also at the same time I feel like that movie works on that level where it's like a morbid curiosity, like, how badly will he fuck up? Like that also keeps you watching. You just want to see how badly is he gonna go, and then yeah, it doesn't end well for him. Without again any spoilers, it doesn't end well for him.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, that's a not a great choice. When he said, by the way, when he said the first 51st dates, I was like, oh, okay, that'd be a first one here, which I actually like this movie. That's so like that. That's also like I think slightly underrated and definitely one of the best Sandler comedies, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, that was one that I surprised. I'll get into it like a little bit more in the
Hmm.
plugs, but one of my podcasts is a time loop podcast, and it's kind of, if you've ever heard of like the movies by minutes form podcast format, it's kind of inspired by that.
Hmm.
In that format, they look at 1 minute of a movie at a per episode, so it's a very long format, very deep dive. And so I take that with time loops and I do one loop at a time. And so
Hmm.
and even though 51st Dates isn't, what most people would think of as a time loop movie, I look at it from the perspective is from the character Lucy's point of view, she's stuck in a time loop because
Yeah,
every day is the day after her accident. And so I broke it down into, I called it, well, actually 19 first dates, because there were 19 dates that we saw over the course of the movie.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and I did like a couple episodes before they started dating. So I did it over 21 podcast episodes. And I was actually surprised that it held up as well as it did doing that deep dive format. And there was a lot of things that really surprised me, especially about like consent
Hmm.
and things like that, and like the how uh, good of a character the Adam Sandler's character ends up being
Hmm.
throughout the course of the movie, and how they really how it's really progressive, and they even have even though it's kind of like hit and miss, like it's played for comedy, but even the character of Alexa,
Hmm.
who I think if the movie was made today, Alexa would be a non-binary character.
Hmm.
Because she's a very masculine looking woman, and there's a lot of
Jokes
comedy
about
based
that.
on yeah, based about, but at the same time, whenever you really deep dive into it and really dissect it, all the character, like all of her friends, like they are very accepting of her. Like it's very friendly jabs at her, but it always seems to be done as a friend and not mean-spirited, but more
Hmm.
lighthearted. And
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting to look at it that way.
Hmm. I haven't actually rewatched it in like couple of years, but I remember again, Adam Sandler for me, like I grew up on all one of those movies would probably be 51st Dates. And then when I have not seen like Little Nicky, I haven't seen like Happy Gilmore, all those like quote unquote classics that put him
Mhm.
on a map and made him into Adam Sandler we know now, right? So I've only watched those within the last 10 years, and each time I'm like, really? This? So like he does have just one shtick of just ding these voices and just like talking and like acting like an idiot. And I'm like, so and that served him well for pretty much 2 decades. I'm like, I guess good for you, man. Like Jesus. Like, but yeah, like I struggled with some of those like early movies that are considered classics. But yeah, 51st Date, just because there's like a progression for his character that he is almost forced in a way to stop acting like an idiot because of this woman who actually influences his life. I thought it was quite interesting. So yeah, and again, Anka Gems. He kind of should have been nominated that year, like yeah, like for an Oscar, like
Yeah, he really
easily.
disappears into that character like that. There's only like a couple brief points where his character gets angry, and you can hear kind of his, comedy angry voice
Yeah.
come out a little bit. But aside from those very brief moments, it does not feel like an Adam Sandler character at all.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say, you know what he should have done when he reviewed the or did the loop for 51st Dates. You should have just reviewed the movie and then released the same episode like 50 more times, as if like it's a new episode.
Hmm.
I'd be like,
I
what are you
actually,
talking about?
whenever I was doing research, because the first movie I did obviously was Groundhog Day.
Of
I
course.
actually did find a podcast that did that exact shtick,
Uh-huh.
where
Yep.
it
Yep.
they said that they were, they were saying that they're going to, I think, watch the entire movie every single day or every single week. And then they had like, a dozen episodes out whenever I found it, and
Mhm.
all dozen episodes were the exact same first episode.
Nice. I kind of appreciate that. So, what would be the last quote unquote adult movie you would rate 5 out of 5? So, anything in between 2002 and 1975.
This one it's a movie that I absolutely love, and it is, looking at the list I have, it's kind of the outlier, but I feel
Hmm.
like it is a bit more in line with the majority with much more of what I typically watch, and that's 2003's Josie and the Pussycats.
Okay.
That
Okay.
that is just such a fun movie, and it's weirdly ahead of its time because
Hmm.
it has this great amount of social satire in it. But it was, I think, whenever it was released, the marketing kind of played it too straight. Like they
Mm.
marketed it as a comedy, but they marketed it as a straight comedy. But it's really a smart satirical comedy,
Hmm.
with this, the whole du jour, the boy band. It's so funny, and you got Seth Green, Breckin Meyer, um, Donald Faison, and then the fourth guy who people wouldn't know, and I don't remember his name, playing this Backstreet Boys in sync style boy band, and their big
Hmm.
hit song is Backdoor Lover. And it's so hilarious. And then, they and it gets so like darkly funny right at the very beginning because they find out the secret of their record company, and then the record executive, like their manager played by Alan Cumming, goes up to the pilot and he says, take the Chevy to the levee, and that's the code word for crashing the plane. And that's just such bizarre but smart humor. It's like you really have to know a lot of background detail to understand what's going on in that moment. And it's just got this such meta humor to it.
Hmm.
Like uh, he finds the pussycats, and he signs them sight unseen, and they have they fly to the either New York or LA, I forget,
Hmm.
but they fly to the record studio, Mega Records, and two of the characters that were in the cartoon,
Hmm.
um, Alexander and his sister, and um, he asks, why are you even here? And she says, because I was in the cartoon. I mean, nothing.
I've heard of this movie. I never seen it, so I cannot really add much to that. But okay, like I, it's an early 2000 comedy, so like it can be, you know, those can be either hit or miss for me.
And I think the music is great. It's like
Hmm.
Josie's singing double is the lead singer from Letters to Cleo,
Hmm.
and the music is really great. It's very much early 2000s girl rock. Like
Yeah,
it's really great stuff in there. And again, like the Backdoor Lover, it is a hilarious parody of Backstreet Boys music.
I see. Okay, w will I enjoy it if I've never, because it is based on a cartoon, right?
Yeah, but it's set up pretty, uh, you know it, other than like kind of the references, it's pretty standalone. Like you
Yeah.
don't need to have seen, 'cause, I mean, Josie and the Pussycat. If you've seen Scooby Doo, it's
Yes, I
that's
have.
basically Josie and the Pussycats. That's basically what the original cartoon was, only with the time for them to do a musical number somewhere in the episode. That's kind of the only difference. So there's not really much more than that you need as background information. And
Hmm.
it's Rosario Dawson as in an earlier role,
Yeah.
and Tara Reid plays one of the characters, and she plays like the dumb character, but
Hmm.
is hilarious. You know, it's probably Tara Reid's best role.
Okay.
And Rachel Lee Cook is Josie, and you know, just coming off of She's All That, so that this is kind of peak Rachel Lee Cook.
I was gonna say it's early 2000s, so of course Rachel Lee Cook needs to be there. Like, she's that girl that, if you had a comedy, like, from like 1997, 8 until 2003, 4, Rachel Lee Cook was like a contractually obligated to be there. So, and Rosario, I'm always down for some Rosario Dawson. Like, I love her. She's awesome. So, no, I've never seen it. I'm more intrigued now to actually watch it. So, thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah,
What would be
I
the
think it's hilarious. I love it.
All right. No, I'll definitely check it. Again, I have a goal, obviously it's so achievable to watch every movie ever made. So like it's a small goal. It's fine. It's fine. Will definitely happen. So like they will definitely, be watched at some point, maybe 20 years down the line, but it will be watched. So what would be the last old movie you would rate 5 out of 5? So anything 1974 and older.
Yeah, this was kind of another one, because I don't watch that many older movies,
Okay.
but I'm an avid podcast listener, and you know, going back to the movies by minutes format, I love that as a podcast format. And I've recently, or earlier this year, I started listening to The Exorcist Minute.
Mm-hmm.
And so they went through The Exorcist minute by minute, and that was really fascinating to listen to that deep dive. And that was a movie that I could have sworn that I watched
Mm-hmm.
before. Like I was certain that I watched this movie, and I wasn't that big on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I listened to the podcast and went through it, and they talked about a bunch of stuff that I didn't remember seeing. And so over Halloween week, I
Mm-hmm.
decided to watch The Exorcist. And it, like after watching it again, I was like, I'm not sure if I actually watched this, because I have, other than the big scenes that have been parodied over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember any part of this movie, and it is really fantastic. Like it's so much better than my memory of having watched it, which it is entirely possible was faulty. Because
Yeah.
I've definitely seen, you know, the parodies of it over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Scary Movie 2, I think was the one where
Yes.
they had the big exorcist
Yes.
scene, and my wife watched some of it, and it is harder to get into those movies if you're very familiar with the parodies, because they do make you laugh
Yes.
rather than keeping you in the moments of tension. But like the build up and everything with the priests, Father Karras and his story
Hmm.
is really fantastic. I mean, it's a movie that if you've seen it, you probably love it. It's For a long time it was considered like the scariest movie ever made. Um,
Hmm.
and I think I watched the theatrical cut, because then the podcast that I listened to, they were going over what they marketed as the version you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Um, and they liked bits of it, but I think for the most part, they preferred the theatrical. So I'm kind of glad that I did watch what I believe is a theatrical
Hmm.
cut of the movie.
No, like I watched The Exorcist only once, quite a few, like a few years ago, and I remember thinking it was very good. It wasn't the scariest movie, I'll say that, but I see how at the time, again, at the time I could see why. Oh, and obviously, like, especially in America being or at least in the 70s, a very Christian country. Now it's starting to shift a tiny bit. But yeah,
I think it
just
also hits different if you're a father too.
that's oh yeah, yes. I don't have any children I know of. So, so I'm definitely not there yet, but no, but I'm also a completionist, so I know there's like at least two sequels, and now there's some like prequels as well, like remakes and all
Mhm.
that. So I
Yeah, like Exorcist the beginning, and there was a
yes,
TV series.
yes, and there's like a new one that was apparently quite bad. Like I want to say last year or this year, I can't even remember. But basically, I think that's like a goal for next Halloween to get through that series and like actually get not just the first one rewatched, but watch the second, the third, and all that. No, but
Yeah,
as you say, like the parodies kind of kill it a bit,
mhm.
the suspense because like yeah, the scary movie two opening vomiting sequence where they just vomit all over each other is just hard to forget.
Yeah, Father, your mother's in here with us. Mother, what are you doing there? Come on, get out of there.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Just
no fun.
so, what would be your favorite movie decade?
Uh, I, I feel like this isn't always true, but I think for a lot of people, their favorite decade is whatever decade they were a teenager in, and for me, that was the 90s, and that's definitely true for me,
Okay,
especially going into 1999, which 99 has so many
great.
fantastic movies
Yeah.
and so many movies that really have stuck with me and it really gave me my love for movies like The Matrix, Fight
Mm-hmm.
Club.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but I know that there is so many from that year. And even going back earlier, you have like Seven,
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years earlier, The Game.
Oh yeah.
I'm just naming Fincher movies
I
now.
was gonna say let's go through the Fincher movies. No, yeah, 90s is like, awesome. Again, like especially 99. Like if you sit down and look everything that released, like in 90s, there's like three, I want to say, actually like stacked years. Like the rest of the 90s are also awesome, but like 94. 97 I think and 99 is are often quoted like like one of the stackest years of all like movie history ever, like and to make you feel myself and you old, 99 25 years ago, so many of those
Hmm.
classics have celebrated 25 years. So if you don't feel old yet, that probably will make you feel old because that doesn't seem doesn't sound real.
Yeah.
It's just so yeah. No, 90s is Jurassic Park, like
Hmm.
Steven Spielberg's had a bit of a run there with obviously Schindler's List and the Jurassic Park back to back. To
Hmm.
me, that's always insane. Like I don't know if you heard that story. The Jurassic Park shoot went so well, he basically abandoned it for last week to start working on Schindler's List. Like it was apparently so smooth. Like he was like, okay, you can deal with the rest of it. I'm gonna, win my Oscar here for Schindler's List. Bye. And I'm like, cool. And both are like just, and yeah, 90s. Grew up in the 90s as well. Even though I wasn't a
Although they
teenager.
did have a lot of problems with the T-Rex animatronic,
No, no,
though.
yeah. Well, it's a Spielberg movie. If there's another problem with animatronic animal, is it even Spielberg movie? Like famously Jaws, the shark, and now
Hmm.
like no, but just yeah. As a person who also grew up in the 90s, but wasn't a like you teenager, did grow up through the 90s. Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, they were not at the peak in the 90s, but they were still there. My guys, you know, if you're,
Total Recall.
oh yeah, totally. Oof, oh, what a movie. Just, and again, if you grew up actually in the 90s and like me, on action movies of those guys, First Blood, Cobra, like, just those movies, Terminator, it's good times. Good times.
Mhm.
So, what was your other hot movie take?
Well, I feel like especially a lot of people would disagree with me on this, especially recently, but I feel like there's no such thing as superhero fatigue.
Hmm.
I I feel like the problem with the recent superhero movies and the lack of box office
Mm-hmm.
is strictly due to the quality of what's come out, and it has nothing to do with superhero fatigue. Because I mean, you still have Deadpool and Wolverine that made a ton of movie because that was a good quality, well-made movie, and
Mm-hmm.
just because you have Craven and Madam Web
Mm-hmm.
um, and the Marvels, yeah, failing. And that doesn't mean that it's because of superhero fatigue. I think it's just because they just didn't happen to hit the right four quadrant marketing.
Yeah.
And anytime a good superhero movie comes out, it's going to make bank.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there just isn't that superhero fatigue, and even like the TV shows, there's still a lot of them that are coming out that are doing well and
Mm-hmm.
are popular. Like I I'm actually not sure how Agatha All Along was rated because I feel like I was kind of in the right internet niche because I feel like everyone that I saw on social media talking about Agatha All Along loved it,
Yeah.
but I got the impression that it didn't do as well as they were hoping in terms of actual numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm not sure if Agatha All Along is considered a hit or a miss. Um, but I know, The Boys has been going strong
Yeah.
for quite a while now, and that's still popular.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Creature Commandos that just came out, and that seems like it's doing pretty well, and it's getting a lot of praise.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's still a lot of X-Men 97 that was, you know,
Well
a
received.
big hit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I always th thought the fatigue was a wrong word for it. I feel like I've talked because I've talked to obviously a lot of movie people about this, movie fans like myself, like you and I, like and others. And I don't think the fatigue is the. I think that it's incorrect word to use this. I think like now, yeah, the quality is definitely a big issue, but I think it's more of a. It just feels disjointed because like everything before Endgame, right? It has like a one kind of path, one goal in mind, and we can see the pieces of the puzzle slowly forming this big picture, right?
Hmm.
And all the movies slowly, obviously sometimes some slower than others, progressed us in the overall arc where we were a bit too close to, oh, Thanos is coming or this is not gonna happen. And now I don't think it's a fatigue, more like, oh yeah, they're trying to build multiverse, but it doesn't feel like anything matters. There, it doesn't feel like anything
Hmm.
has any like seeds here and there they've been planted for anything to pay off
And
in like
and it doesn't help that they kind of lost their
oh yeah.
they kind of lost their Thanos because they were building to Kang the Conqueror, and then
Yes.
they lost their Kang, and then they're switching to Doom
Yeah.
at it feels like the last minute. So
Well, it
there's
was
been
a
that
last
pivot.
minute. It was a last
Yeah.
minute because Jonathan
But
Majors,
it feels like last minute too. Like
yeah,
it
it was
there.
unfortunate. He
Mhm.
had to be the way he was, and he had to do what he looks like he did, what he was accused of doing. So, yeah, that
Mhm.
would be very hard.
Even though I believe that the charges have recently been dropped, but that doesn't mean that it didn't
Yes,
happen. It just didn't,
correct.
it's just not going through the legal system.
Correct. Yes. It just, yeah, it doesn't, yeah, correct. So it would be a awkward press junket for those movies with, with him being attached to that.
Mhm.
I'm genuinely surprised they left him be part of a Loki season two because I was so sure they're gonna cut it out, they're gonna reshoot the entire thing. And I guess there must have been some sort of contract, obligation where they couldn't do it. Because like let's not kid ourselves here. It's Disney. If they could, they probably would just bin him like all completely. But they cannot. So yeah, not only Robert Downey Jr. is back as Doctor Doom, apparently Chris Evans is back. I don't know whether he's
Yeah.
back as Captain America or some other role. I don't think.
I believe, MCU rumors are a dime a dozen, but
Yes,
the last one I saw is that they believe he's coming back as Nomad.
which I have no idea who that is because I'm not a comic
And
book person.
that's basically, well, it's Captain America whenever he wasn't uh, or that was Steve Rogers
Hmm.
whenever he wasn't Captain America.
Ah,
And
okay.
I don't, it's not clear if it's the MCU Captain America or if it'll be a variant Captain, a variant Steve Rogers.
And yeah, like with those two decisions and hiring Russos again to, to direct the next big Avengers movie, it almost reeks of desperation. Like again, it might be the best thing ever. Like, look, I'll give it a shot. I'm higher on most of the newer ones, even though I can see they are not the quality they once were. But like even with the Marvels, I still found things to enjoy. Like I don't think I'm on an island here who I don't think it was a bad movie. But
Yeah,
I
that's one
understand.
where I've kind of fallen off on keeping up with them,
Hmm.
but I do want to watch it, and I feel like I would still like it. I still have high hopes for it. It's just a matter of, being in the right mood and act deciding to actually put it on to watch it.
And what's frustrating for me, especially with Marvels, you know, you cannot even trust the IMDb rating or even I think Letterboxd pays closer attention to that issue, but those movies get review bombed by bunch
Hmm.
of people who are mad that Brie Larson's in it, or another woman is in it, or a woman is directing it, and yeah, like I've literally seen like screenshots of like on IMDb like the not even it wasn't even released and it already had like 2.1, and I don't
Hmm.
understand how that's allowed, like to review bomb shit like that. It's still and it still happens. So like take that rating with a big pinch of salt and just see it, watch it for yourself. If you don't like it, fair. But like that rating does not reflect the quality of the movie. I will say, yeah, it's look, is it a perfect movie? No. Is it a perfectly enjoyable movie? Yeah. And yeah, with the other like so yeah, with the fatigue, I think it just feels a bit aimless. And them taking back or bringing back Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, it does reek of desperation a tiny bit, and they really need that big hit. But again, what do I know? I'll go watch it in the cinemas, and if it's gonna be the best thing since sliced bread, I'll love it. Maybe it
And,
won't,
and and I
maybe it
think
will be.
another issue isn't so much that the audience are fatigued with
Mm,
seeing superheroes. It's more like the studios, they are money, chasing the money, and
yes, money
the
hungry.
quality control from the studios is that they're green lighting more mediocre projects because they think that's because they're chasing the superhero boom. And so there's a lot more low quality products that make their way out
Hmm.
because it's just studios chasing the bank rather than them actually making quality products.
Yeah. Again, just yeah, like they are lucky that Deadpool and Wolverine, worked so well because like that kind of seemed like that was the hit they desperately needed. And next year we're getting a few, yeah, this year was the first since 2012 we've only gotten one Marvel movie. Yes, we got a Madam Web and Craven the Hunter. They are kind of Marvel adjacent, but they're not pure
They're Marvel, but
Marvel.
not MCU.
Yes. So this is, and I didn't even realize until I read it on IMDb. Since 2012, we've been getting at least two Marvel MCU movies a year. So this was the first one since 2012, and I'm like, okay. And the next year, I think we're getting like at least two or three. So we're back, and we'll see what happens there. So yeah. Any other hot movie takes, or you want to move to the underrated part of the?
I think I'm good.
All right. So let's move to the underrated part where I'll ask you, Baba, who do you think is the most underrated actor we have right now?
This this feels like another tough question for me because I
Hmm.
don't pay attention to a ton of actors. I kind of focus on the movies themselves, and
Hmm.
a lot of times I will like IMDb a movie if I like it and see, oh, what do I know this person from? What do I know that person from? What do I know the director from?
Hmm.
Um, but I think the one that I'm gonna go with, and I feel like his cachet has uh risen quite a bit in recent years, but Alan Tudyk.
Oh, nice.
I love him, and I think just within the past couple of years, I watched one of his early movies, 28 Days. Not the prequel to 28 Days Later, kind of not really, but the Sandra Bullock rehab movie.
Oh,
It's
okay.
yeah,
Hmm.
it was Sandra Bullock, uh, uh, Lord of the Rings guy. I can't think of his name.
Hmm.
Played Aragorn, and Alan
Oh, Viggo
Tudyk
Mortensen.
plays yeah Viggo Mortensen.
Hmm.
It's kind of a romantic comedy with the two of them as kind of the leads, but it's also like it's more of a dramedy because it's centers around this like rehab retreat place, and Alan Tudyk plays like a gay German addict,
Hmm.
and he is just hilarious. Like it's a small role, but even back then, like I just kind of fell in love with him. And then these days, he's done so much with voice acting, and he's got such range too. Because even like recently, I listened to a podcast talking about Dollhouse, the Joss Whedon
Oh, yeah.
series that he did after Buffy and Angel with Eliza Dushku, and Alan Tudyk plays Alpha. He plays like the villain of that, where he's like super buff. He's like playing this psycho slasher killer,
Hmm.
um, the doll, and he is so terrifying in that role. And then he's also like the main villain in completely different type of villain in Doom Patrol.
Hmm.
Like that's such a different character, and like his voice work, um King Candy doing like the weird uh Mad Hatter voice from Alice in Wonderland.
Hmm.
The that is such a unique choice, even though it's funny because I'm a big Kevin Smith fan, and I was big into his podcasts, and he does um or at least did Hollywood and Babylon with Ralph Garman,
Hmm.
and that was kind of like their Hollywood news podcast. And Ralph Garman is kind of an impressionist, and he would do the I think Fred Gwynn is the actor's name, the oh like
Oh.
the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland.
Hmm.
Um, and he would do that voice a ton, and then that was before Wreck-It Ralph came out, and he was like so annoyed that Alan Tudyk got so much praise for doing this same similar voice that he's been doing.
Yeah. I no, yeah, Alan Tudyk is awesome. I love that piece of trivia. I was hoping you were gonna mention the voice acting because I love that piece of trivia that ever since Wreck-It Ralph 2012, he has been in every single Disney animated movie since 2012. I don't know if maybe the streak's been broken in like in newer
He's kind of
movies.
like their uh, John Ratzenberger.
Yeah, I think so. And again, it might have been broken now. I haven't seen the one, a few other one, like a few newest one. Like I still haven't seen Wish or anything, of those like animated Disney movies. But
I wish
the
was all right. So I know it
Yeah,
got a
that's what
lot
I
of
keep hearing.
flack.
That's what I keep
Yeah,
hearing. It's just it's fine. Yeah, but I will watch it at some point. But like
and
the
it's hilarious too that he was the voice of Hey Hey, the the
I
stupid
was
chicken.
I was gonna bring it up that it always kills me, and I love that yeah, he is in Moana as the chicken. That's just Alan Tudyk. It's not chicken. It's not yeah, it's not computer. It's just Alan Tudyk doing a chicken. And I'm like, I love that attention to detail. I haven't seen Dollhouse. I've seen Firefly. So like obviously I love him from that show because he was awesome on that show. And yeah, like he is great and good for him. Like doing all these voices and just seems to be having a good time. So hey, is there anything else
Yeah,
you?
and even like getting some lead roles too. Like I
Hmm.
know he was the lead in Con Men. That was like kind of a I didn't watch it, but it was like a short-lived like a small streaming show about gaming conventions
Hmm.
and he's got Resident Alien now where he
Hmm.
plays the lead in that.
He definitely has the like a street cred for a main for like geeks and nerds, like
Mhm.
because obviously Firefly, he Dollhouse, so like that, but also like the Disney stuff, so like a lot of voice acting. So I feel like he is definitely like a sneaky one there, where like we should be thanking him for much more than we are aware of. That because he's had his hands in so many pies. Like we
Mhm.
sometimes it's hard to comprehend. But
Yeah,
yeah,
he's a real working actor.
oh he is. So who do you think is the most underrated actress we have right now?
Oh, that is if that's difficult. I
Mm.
know and again this is one that's I saw it and I think whenever I was preparing like the way the format was I was thinking it was actor or actress. So
Ah, I see.
um I'm trying to think.
Hmm.
Because again, I'm not like huge on, I could say go back and say Rachel Lee Cook, because she kind of disappeared. I don't
Hmm.
remember if she's been doing anything recently.
I think she's
Uh,
kind of like, still working, but it's like, one or two, I don't think like in any quote unquote A projects. Like, like I
yeah, I
think
know
they're
she
like
was
in
still
like
doing
Hallmark
voices for like
movies.
Robot Chicken once in a while
Hmm.
because I remember, although I guess this was still like a while back because she did the Robot Chicken version of her PSA that she did where it was this is your brain on this is your brain on drugs with the frying pan,
Uh-huh.
and then she did like the sequel version of that where uh she's like this is your brain on heroin, where
Hmm.
she like smashes the egg with the frying pan against the wall, and then she's like this is what your parents go through, and it's just taking the pan and smashing the stuff around the kitchen. And that's like the original PSA. And then
Uh-huh.
Robot Chicken did a version where they extended that to like a 4 minute gag where she's just going on a rampage with a frying pan.
Hmm.
And that was her doing the voice of that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I've seen clips of Robot Chicken. I've never actually watched the like entire episode, but I do want to because it just seems like so much good stuff is from Robot Chicken, and it's kind of cemented its place in a pop culture, where it feels like very Family Guy, but very kind of
Mm.
like South Park Family Guy in a way, where it's just like very aware of itself, but it's also, from what I understand, quite quick to get done, so you can be quite topical and you can stay ahead of the curve. Like that's why South
Yeah,
Park can be quite topical because that animation
yeah,
literally takes like
I
three
do think
takes.
Family Guy is a good touch point. Like it's very similar to that because they do like a lot of it is pop culture references.
Yes,
They have a lot, and especially from like the 80s and 90s.
yes,
There is a lot of that. And then they also have, it's the entire show is nothing but non sequiturs.
correct, correct.
So it's kind of like taking the non sequitur bits of Family Guy and turning it into its own show where
And
it's nothing
obviously,
but non sequiturs.
yes, and obviously, if I'm not mistaken, it's Seth Green's show who is
Yeah,
voicing Brian, not
yeah,
Brian,
Chris.
Chris. Yes, I was like,
Mhm.
no, yeah, Chris on Family Guy. So yeah, but okay. So who do you think is the most underrated director then?
The for the director, I'm gonna go with, he hasn't done a ton, but what
Hmm.
he has done, I really love. It's Nacho Vigalondo. His kind of biggest movies were like one of his first movies, if not his first movie, was a Spanish language film called Time Crimes, which is
Okay.
a time loop movie, and that is really fantastic.
Hmm.
And then he's done a couple English language movies. And the one that I've seen, which is also great, is Colossal, the
Oh,
kaiju movie. Yeah, he
yes.
directed that. And that is just such a fantastic movie.
Hmm.
Um, and again, that segue into a plug for myself. I did was able to do an interview with him,
Oh,
so I
nice.
was able to talk to him about specifically about time crimes, and
Mm.
that he was such a great interview. Like he was so friendly and just fantastic to talk to, and really helped make me a bigger fan of him.
I was like, why does this name seem so familiar? Yeah, so I've seen Colossal, which is a great movie, but he also did Open Windows. Have you seen or heard of that movie?
I've heard of it, but I haven't had a chance to watch that one yet.
It's Elijah Wood, but Sasha Grey, when she was trying to kind of be an actress,
Hmm.
from one type of actress to like an actual actress. Let's leave it there. But yeah, like I've heard pretty good things about that movie, but I have not seen it. And yeah, Colossal was very good movie. And I'm Time Crime. I've heard of, like, a couple of people like yourself talking about that movie being great. So I need to check it out. I definitely need to check it out. So that's growing, going on my ever growing to watch list, which is now, excuse me, about probably like 8,000 movies and counting.
Hmm.
Uh, I know the next one is more difficult, but do you have maybe one or two movies you would consider underrated and want more people to know of and give them a watch?
Yeah, I think for movies, I would go back to like my superhero blogging days. This is a an extremely obscure, low budget Australian movie called The Subjects. Um,
Okay.
and I'll have to like double check when it came out. So I think it was like early 2000s. And it is kind of like uh, I mean, a not superhero, but like comic book horror movie in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because it is basically about this drug um, test. Like a bunch of people go in for this drug test,
Mm-hmm.
clinical trial. Um, 2015 was whenever it came out,
Mm-hmm.
and the drug ends up giving them superpowers.
Okay.
But but the thing is, it's a realistic, it's a much more realistic and horrific take on what would happen if you actually got superpowers and didn't know how to actually use them. Like one person gets the ability to teleport,
Mm-hmm.
and he manages to teleport, but he only teleports like 75% of his body, and so his arm doesn't come with him, and so
Ah.
he loses his arm and dies. And so it's just this episode of people like trying to figure out what's going on, and they're locked in this room.
Mm-hmm.
And the I'll spoil it because I'm sure this movie is hard to find. I don't think too many people are going to end up watching it on this recommendation, but one of the persons gets like kind of like what's his name from Watchmen, the Dr. Manhattan. Yeah, he gets kind of like Dr. Manhattan level powers,
Okay.
and so he's kind of basically taken this entire room and isolated it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no longer there, and he's kind of like the Zen guy, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the spoiler at the end. But um, like it ends up being kind of a face off between like the last remaining ones of them, and I think one other person also gets like time, uh, the ability to manipulate time, but he ends up like getting stuck in time or lost in time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's just really interesting and tense and well done. I think another one which I think more people will have heard of, that I wouldn't mind recommending is Blue Ruin, which is the the second movie from Jeremy Saulnier. Uh, it's I think 20 in the 20 teens was when it came out. He also did Green Room.
Okay.
Um, and that's again, it's another like kind of tense thriller that's it's similar to like a Nobody or um at least I want to I haven't seen that, but it's kind of like this regular guy that goes on a revenge kick,
Mm,
and so, like it's he starts out as being like this homeless man, and then he like cleans himself up, and then you find out that he is going on this mission of revenge, and but he's a normal guy, so he makes a bunch of mistakes and does it very messily.
mm-hmm.
And it's just like his story, and it's very self-contained, very minimalistic, but very like tense throughout because he's always like on the verge of not, things not going the right way, and
Yeah.
it's really really well done.
Okay. I have heard of Blue Ruin. Like I've definitely seen it in like quite a few like rankings when I see some like movies that are worth seeing. I definitely did see that poster quite a few times, so that's on my radar. The subjects have not has not been on my radar at all, but it kind of sounds intriguing. Because when he said like if what if superheroes existed, I thought the the finish of that sentence would be and they were like kind of dicks, or they were like I know, and they just didn't know how to use the the powers properly. That I just thought, okay, that's a intriguing idea. So sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, it's the because it's like super low budgets,
Hmm.
the acting is a little bit spotty and the special effects are very, low budget special effects, but
Hmm.
I think it's pretty well done and the story is worthwhile.
Okay, noting it down. And since you are, more into TV shows now, is there any one or two TV shows you want to shout out as being underrated?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with another like very obscure TV show that I actually the only way that I found it was that I purchased it on DVD like in the early 2000s. It
Hmm.
was 2001. It's aired on MTV. It's an animated show called Undergrads, and it reminds me a lot of has kind of a Kevin Smith sense of humor. It reminds me a lot of Clerks, the animated series.
Ah, okay.
Um, and it is kind of like that almost like Family Guy-ish sense of humor.
Hmm.
And it only ran for one season, but it's really funny. It's it's like college undergrads, so it's kind of like the uh, undeclared,
Mm.
which is another, which I think it was probably roughly the same time. That was the Judd Apatow series he did right after Freaks and Geeks,
Ah, I see.
which also only lasted like one season and was very quickly canceled. And it's
Hmm.
it's a bunch of college students, and it's you got the main guy Cal, who's kind of the normal everyday um, college student,
Hmm.
and he's got his like jock friend, like very jock frat boy friend, but it's like his long-term friend, so they're kind of still friends even though they're not exactly in the same circles. And then I think it's his roommate is Mump is his name, and he's like the super tech nerd, like the uh like the very almost like creepy, like would rather just spend all his time out on the computer, like doesn't ever go outside. I think they
Yeah.
have jokes where he goes outside and he's like, ah, sunlight.
Okay. So both I never heard of either of those, to nobody's surprise. I guess like early 2000s cancel after one season. Yeah, you would. It's I guess it's one of those like you would have to be there shows to actually what
Hmm.
as you say like it's only available on DVDs. So okay, sounds fascinating. Sounds fascinating.
Fun. I don't even think that Undeclared is available on DVD. I mean, it might be, but
Hmm.
I happened to catch that one live whenever it aired. And that was like, I didn't even know who Judd Apatow was. I think it aired on Fox. I just
I see.
happened to watch it in that time slot and thought it was funny.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you for those recommendations. They're definitely like, like I think that's a great, like underrated, like, where many people would not have heard of it. So they can
It's so
actually,
underrated that I would be surprised if anybody had ever even heard of it.
well, that's the definition. So like I'm actually happy
Mhm.
about that. Like I'm many times when people tell me, "Oh, there's this
Yeah, have you ever
movie."
heard of this show? It's really underrated. It's called Breaking Bad.
Or there's this like that's why I like this podcast, like talking to people who watch different movies than I do. And I many times I would heard of a movie I've never seen, but many times here people tell me, oh, there's this movie from even last year and I've never heard of it, and I'm like, oh, that sounds intriguing. And yeah, it's most of the time it's awesome. No, but thank you so much for your time. Like it's been a blast. Before we say goodbye, you've been very kind and patient answering all my questions, so thank you for that. Is there a question or two you would like to ask me?
Oh, I had one. Did I write it down? I did not. I'm really bad. Um, actually, no,
Mm-hmm.
I am going to go back to my superhero blogging days because
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of fallen off on that to a certain extent, but I did talk to a lot of people while I was doing my movie blog, and
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I would ask every person that I talk to is, what's your favorite superhero movie? So
Oh,
let me
damn.
put that out to you.
I feel like I'll be basic, and probably if I have to choose favorite, it would be Dark Knight, because like I am like that's a like it's a default art answer for a reason, and, because it's such a great movie. It's
Mhm.
more than a superhero movie; it's a movie. But if we go, I guess you know what? If we disqualify that, because I honestly don't even see it as a superhero movie. I think it's just a great movie on its own. But if we go strictly superhero with somebody with actual superpower, not just being rich as Batman, because that's his whole shtick. I have a very soft spot for the OG Spider-Man movies, and particularly Spider-Man 2, like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, because, Doc Ock, like there's so many different sequences that are not only great, but they are kind of horror, like Sam Raimi's showing his horror roots from the late,
Mhm.
from how he broke into the industry as a, with Evil Dead, obviously. And there is something so unique about Spider-Man 2 where it works after all these years as a great superhero movie about what does it actually mean to be a superhero, what it actually entails and takes a toll on your personal life. But also I love
Yeah, and
Spider-Man.
even though it's a sequel, it does a good job with like the hero's journey, especially with him like
Yes.
throwing refusing the call, I believe is what it's
Yes.
called in the hero's journey.
Yeah, because he actually, yeah, for well about 20 minutes, he actually rejects being Spider-Man and he attempts to live just, his life as Peter Parker. But funny enough, actually, that made me, makes me think, and I'm thinking about it. Now there might be a new contender, and it's also a Spider-Man movie. I fucking love Across the Spider-Verse, the one from last year. I don't know if you've seen it yet.
And yeah, that's one that it's really like at the top of my list, but I have not managed to get around to it yet. But yeah, I loved Into the
I was gonna
Spider-Verse
say,
so
how do you?
much.
Okay, because to me, so like, okay, with this franchise, with the Spider-Verse franchise, I've seen Into the Spider-Verse about a year or two after it came out. So like I've been hyped up and I was, it was a great movie. And then I saw Across the Spider-Verse and there was something that on another level that just clicked with me. And now I've watched it I've just rewatched it for a third time. I watched it twice in the cinemas, by the way. And a third time for a first time on my in my because I'm collecting movies in 4K and Blu-ray, and then I had to buy in a 4K, so that just pops. It's so fucking great, and it still plays so well, even though it's 2 hours and two and a half hours. It never feels like that. It just flies by, and I know some people have issues with how it ends and where it ends. That it's like a movie and 20 minutes of a different movie. I don't think so, but I see what they mean by that. never had any. Well, I was slightly disappointed how it ended for when it first time, like when I watched it for the first time, because I wanted more. I wanted so much more. But a second and third time, like no, it's this is Gwen's story. And Gwen's story is actually tied up. This is if you think about it from that angle, where the beginning she breaks up with her band, and at the end she's formed her own new band. It's her story, yes. Peter's story is not finished. It will be finished in Beyond the Spider-Verse, sure. But this is her movie. And if you think about it from that, like, it is a complete movie. So, and it's and yeah, so this talking about favorite superhero movies, yeah, Dark Knight and two Spider-Man movies because I love me some Spider-Man. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's he is so great in there. I can understand why Sony tried to mine the Spider-Man villains, but it was a mistake to not include Spider-Man in any of those.
Yep. And again, like the Sinister Six movie, we are supposed to get like
Twice.
2014. Like, yeah. That's been in development hell. I would love to see that movie. And especially, it was made and written by the guy who did the Cabin in the Woods. So, like, and then his name escapes me right now, but like the script is
Drew
written.
Goddard.
Yes, Drew, thank you, Drew Goddard. And like, if it was him, and Cabin in the Woods is fucking awesome, I would be very inclined to see that. Like, I'm just, it's
Yeah,
so.
I actually, it's funny that another podcast that I listened to earlier this year, it was Cabin Minute Cast, which is another movies by minute that went through that
Mhm,
movie 1 minute at a time.
mhm. No, it's also like Cabin in the Woods is great also, but like, yeah, I genuinely wish Sony would just sell the rest of the Spider-Man to Sony, so we would stop being in this kind of weird fucking limbo where Spider-Man can be in MCU, but we cannot reference him too much, otherwise we'll have to pay Sony some, extra money. And then, like, and then they try to launch their own universe, Spider-Verse, and besides the Spider-Verse movies, everything fucking flops, and because they don't know
Mhm.
what they're doing. Just give it up, guys. Enough
Well,
is
they did
enough.
announce that they're that they with the release of Craven, that's going to be the final live action like
Hmm.
villain verse of whatever they call it.
Oh yeah. No, but I want, but I do want them to get one step further and actually be like, okay, Marvel, how much you paying for everything? Like, name your price. Get rid. We just get rid of it. You can do better job, but they'll never do that. And it's a shame because like now because of that, Spider-Man exists in this kind of weird void where even like Venom, it was clearly meant to be part of MCU, and Tom Hardy was meant to be part of MCU, but because of this all these deals that are no deals and then maybe deals, it just complicates everything. And now Tom Hardy is done with Venom movies, or by everything it seems like he's done. It's a shame. It's a shame. Like, I would love to see like a Sinister Six movie,
Mhm.
or even a Spider-Man movie, and just purely Marvel. Like, I thought Woody, like Tom Holland, is a great Spider-Man. I thought his
Yeah, I think the
movie.
closest that we got, and potentially the closest that will get, is No Way Home.
Yes, yes. I thought all those three movies were, by the way, also great, like in MCU. Like, I thought Tom Holland is a great Spider-Man, but he's also not getting any quote unquote younger. He's still a young guy. But, like, we don't want to, like,
Yeah,
Toby.
he's a young guy and he does have that baby face, so he can
Yes,
play
correct.
young for a while, but he can't play that young forever.
And also, it is a physically demanding role, so it's,
Hmm.
so I kind of hope they'll make at least one or two more with him as a Spider-Man, and within the proper like MCU, and we can actually invite Spider-Man villains, right? Rather than, well, because Sony has the rights, technically we cannot really invite this person or this person, so we can, hint at them. It's like, it's the Madam Web. It's like, oh, you're expecting a baby. What's his name? Oh, we were thinking about, and then they get interrupted because they cannot say Peter fucking Parker, and I'm like,
Well, funnily enough, I and again, I don't know how true the rumor mill is, but I did see a post, like a news article that said that technically Sony was absolutely allowed to use Peter Parker in any of those movies. They just decided not to.
To be fair, let's not even start on Madam Web because I'm so fucking mad what they've done to that movie. Because like what Dakota Johnson signed up for what is not the movie we've gotten by any way, shape, or form, and like that's why she seemed to basically had her fun promoting that movie because she really was not happy with the result. So, and I'm like, to be fair, if I was in her position and signed up, to for a movie that it was effectively Terminator with Spider-Man, and then the end result, no, that was the actual original pitch of that movie, where her with the Spider Girl, Spider Women, would protect, unborn Peter Parker. That was the pitch. What we've gotten is has a like slight resemblance to that, but it's a fucking mess. And I would be also mad if I sign up. Oh, that seems like a cool idea, and then the end result is like, oh, we're having this finale under this massive Coca-Cola bottle. Cool. I'm like, what? Anyway, any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being gracious enough with your time and with all your answers. Very appreciated. If
That was a lot
people
of fun.
Thank you, thank you. If people enjoyed our We Talk, where can they follow you?
Well, like I mentioned at the top of the show,
Mm-hmm,
I on in every social media, if you just search Bubbawheat, one word, that's you will find me. These days, I'm most active on Threads. That's kind of the one that's to me feels most like the new Twitter.
mm-hmm,
I've uh, but I still have most of them installed on my phone. So if
mm-hmm,
you shout me out, if you want to send me a message, I will most likely see it. Um, and as long as you're saying something nice, I will reply. And
mm-hmm,
I do have a few podcasts out there, and my active podcast is called It's Time to Rewind, and I take a look at time loops in movies and TV shows, and I do kind of deep dives into them
mm-hmm,
where every episode I cover one loop of the time loop. So I did started with Groundhog Day for 36 episodes. I did Triangle and Time Crimes. Um, I did Buffy and Angel. I did an episode on each of their. They had one time loop episode, so I covered those episodes one loop at a time.
mm-hmm,
I'm currently doing Red Dwarf and Doctor Who, and uh, I'm going through them, a little bit differently because there is, a lot of like time loop adjacent movies, but I wanted to really give them the proper due. So I'm doing Red Dwarf one series at a time,
mm-hmm,
doing one episode per series. I'm doing Doctor Who one doctor at a time, one episode per doctor, starting with the first doctor. And then whenever I get to Jodie Whittaker, who had like a proper Groundhog Day style episode, I'm covering that in 9 parts, one for each loop, the Eve of the Daleks. And then I'm also doing a few other like Hooniverse spin-offs that did time loop episodes, like Sarah Jane Adventures had a time loop episode, and K9, which was an Australian spin-off that just featured K9 from Doctor Who. And also like an old 80s British show called Sapphire and Steel had a couple time loop episodes. So I'm gonna
mm-hmm,
cover those as well, kind of on the back end. So it's like a whole British uh, TV series
mm-hmm.
season.
Nice.
Um, and and uh, and the one before that, like I mentioned, was 50 First Dates, which I did one date at a time. And I also did Memento, which that's again, that's with the short-term memory loss.
Mm-hmm,
Like I did that one scene at a time, doing the color and the black and white, and that was fun. And I got an interview with Stephen Tobolowsky, who plays Sammy Jenkins,
nice.
and that was a fantastic interview. And then I also have a music podcast called Lyrical Innuendo. And
Mm,
in that show, what I do is me and my co-host, we take a look at a song and break down the lyrics and kind of discuss the innuendo
mm-hmm,
in the lyrics. So, what's actually said and what's not said. And we kind of make the decision, is this song really about sex, drugs, or is it just rock and roll?
Yeah.
and that's a lot of fun. And taking songs like like a prayer,
Hmm.
and is like a prayer. You know, is that a religious song about a religious experience, or is it about a blowjob?
Hmm. No,
And
that's a. Hmm.
yeah, so we cover, and we kind of cover all sorts of music genres and eras, like going all the way back to like Chuck Berry's My Ding-a-Ling, and more recent songs like Lady Gaga, I think is
Hmm.
gonna be our next one after we come back from a hiatus, or like Harry Styles' Watermelon Sugar.
Oh
Like
yeah,
we covered that one.
nice.
So that's a lot of fun.
Okay, like think. Okay, uh, I'll place your letterbox and threads links below so people can check it out, and all and if they are intrigued, they've heard of names of the podcast. So thank you for that. Thank you so much. As always with me, any movies lost on Letterboxd, lostinmovies.co.uk is my blog where I try to write at least once a week. I'm trying desperately hard. And this podcast every other Friday. And as always, this part of is part of SPDM Crew Podcast Media. Special shout out goes to HiFlyer Creative for designing my logo. To see what I have happening, visit highflyercreative.com. Until next time, bye bye.